Angels, like your whole career, how you got into the spotlight, and it reminded me so much of what I'm going through right now.
What's up, everybody? For today's topic, I wanted to talk about Olandria from Love Island Season 7 being on Angel Reese's podcast this week and having a good conversation about the parallels that these two women have had to go through on social media, a rise to fame, being villainized, overly villainized, having to deal with that in tandem together of becoming a celebrity while also being hated by a section of fans. And in Olandria's case, honestly, in both of their cases, for the most ridiculous reasons. I like this because in the past, Olandria she's gone on podcasts, but a lot of them she's been with other people. She did podcasts with Shelly. She does a lot of podcasts with Nick. She rarely does these podcasts where it's just her and the podcast interviewer. And because it was that, I feel like this is the first time we really got to see Olandria be 100% vulnerable and real with a lot of her experiences. And I think that was because of the parallels between her and Angel Reese.
She don't be doing nothing. She just be being herself, and she gets tore down about it. And I really just love the way how you just like continue to elevate, regardless of what the haters are saying. You see, was continue to elevate.
Angel Reese's rise to fame in basketball started in college, really, and the rivalry with Caitlin Clark. And of course, Angel Reese was the villain in that rivalry, and it eventually was LSU being villainized in that rivalry, of course, LSU being mostly black women. Of course, the media would make the LSU team the villains. And one thing about Angel Reese that I like is that Angel will lean into being a villain, which I think is a good thing, an entertaining thing, and I also think it's something that helps her thrive on social media. The problem with being a villain on social media is for her, being a black woman, she's going to be extra villainized because some people online can't hate without taking it to racism. And I would say that Angel Reese's Twitter is a cesspool of vitriol with that. But she does a good job of handling that and rising above the hate and still thriving with all these brand deals, which was something that came up during the podcast. Olandria had a similar thing happen to her on Love Island, where she and Shelly were villainized, even though they were not the villains. But some edits didn't help their cases. Especially in Olandria's edit, though, I don't really know how she became a villain. The real villains that season were Huda and Taylor. They were the villains that season for me, personally. No matter what the edit would try and do, the professional victimhood of Huda would always come through and try to save her. It hasn't been saving her recently online with the whole incident with her man Louis on his live and them laughing at a slur because they're so immature. Finally, Huda's victimhood was shattered, and she finally had to deal with some blowback from that from her brands because she's an idiot. As for Olandria, though, who because of Huda's crazy stands, had to deal with so much racism and blowback since coming off of the show, despite her not being a villain on the show. And that's why this conversation with Angel, I think, worked. I liked when they talked about the hate and how the fandom are hating them into thriving, basically. How they are getting this hate, but they're rising above it, and it's getting them brand deals.
I think like people sit and realize like you continue to hate. You hated me into this. Like y'all hated me into being a Victoria's Secret model. Y'all hated me into being on the cover of Vogue. Like y'all hated me into that, and that's why I've been saying you pop your like
continue to
pop your.
Yeah.
in a way, sometimes people say that that any attention is good attention, that controversy could make you cash, and that's kind of what happens here, even though I don't think Olandria is controversial at all. I think she's been one of the best people from the Love Island season to have the best PR and kind of staying out of the drama herself when some other people got out of the season and couldn't help themselves but stay in the drama. Now, like I said, I do think Angel Reese will sometimes play into being hated, which is what good entertainers do. Even in sports, the good entertainers will embrace that because it can still make you the cash, which it does very well for Angel. Why I think Olandria did so well in this interview is because she was with someone who can see the same sides that she does. And it finally brought out some vulnerabilities in Olandria talking about her relationship with Nick, because the double-edged sword of fame, especially when it comes to these new Love Island seasons where the Islanders become so popular after getting out of the show, is that you will become popular on social media, but becoming popular on social media means that the people who are your biggest shippers expect you to put out all of your private life on social media. They expect constant pictures of Olandria and Nick, videos of Olandria and Nick together, and the discussion about how do you keep certain things private when you are in such this big public eye. And the fact that sometimes Nick and Olandria are in this lose-lose scenario where if they are not seen together enough, that means they're having problems. If they're seen together too much, it means they're overdoing it and it's fake. It really does annoy me when it comes to the lose-lose situation that the fandom puts Nick and Olandria in. But I did enjoy her finally clapping back.
There's the other side of the internet too, just like always nitpicking it, every little thing. Oh, I'm not buying it. Oh, good thing I ain't selling shit. What the you know what I'm saying? Period. So it's just like, I don't care what you buying. Like I have so many videos and pictures of me and Nick in my phone that I just don't post because that's for me.
Basically, at all the people saying I'm not buying it when Nick and Olandria are together, she said she's not for sale, which I think was a good response to that. And I also, of course, need to give my fallow Nick and fallow Pisces credit where credit is due. Olandria hyping up Nick for the fact that he knows he's with an it girl and there is no competition in their relationship, which is also a good thing when two people are so popular.
He allows me to be myself unapologetically. He never like try to shut me down or water me down.
Yes.
You know, I'm always talking about how I love being black, whatever.
Yes.
He support the hell out of it. He never those type of talks never make him feel uncomfortable. He support me through and through regardless of what I got going on. And he know he's dating the it girl. Like never try to steal my shine when we out and they taking pictures. He be like, oh no, take pictures of her. He be like,
but she also shed some light on her past relationships that would try to darken her light and be jealous of any success, whereas Nick has always been one to cheer Olandria on.
It's so funny because prior to this life, when I used to date, a lot of guys used to be so intimidated by me. They would try to dim my light, say little things to try to like throw me off my game. You know what I mean? I'm like, bro, we ain't in competition. Like, what's up? Like, you know, which turned me off to the dating game years ago. I'm like, why are we in competition?
It's one of the many reasons they did work on the show. Of course, them starting off as friends, I think, helped a lot as well because they got to figure out if they actually genuinely like this person as a person and could be friends first. The friends to lovers trope was why, well, not exactly the only reason, but one of the main reasons why Nick and Olandria became so popular with the fandom, the whole will they or won't they, because Nick was clearly into Olandria in competitions, the show had to do a lot of legwork to get them to come together and admit that they're into each other. But since then, they both have been thriving. And so I just want to say in closing, and why this was the topic of the day, sometimes you do have to rise above the hate. I feel like John Cena here, because that was one of his quotes for a while. But I think both Angel Reese and Olandria show the best way in doing that. They've also had some good conversations on how to deal with social media, especially when you are this big and popular, all the blowback that might come your way. It was a really good conversation. So any Love Island fans or Olandria stans, I think, should go check it out if you haven't already. I assume that the biggest fans of Olandria already have. It's good to see her be able to be so raw in a podcast, because we've yet to see that, in my opinion, from Olandria. But I think it's because it was someone who was actually interested in her point of view, but someone that could also feel all of the same parallels that she had.